Welcome back. Today we have a U5000 that is ticking, and I'm told it's already been worked on, and some of the previous work was shoddy at best, so that doesn't bode well for us, for our situation here. But the other side, I have to open up the bottom here, because the other side here, that the top has all of my information, the owner's information, and I'm too lazy to cut the label off, so we're going to open it up from the bottom side like we normally do. So let's unbox it here and see what we're dealing with. All right. Loose neck board is always nice. Remote board separate. Okay. All right, let's set this out of the way and see what we have going on here. As expected, all of our heat sinks are smashed over and they're loose as a goose. So this is never fun, but not unexpected, as most of them are like that. So we'll have to take care of that. You can see that middle one wobbling around there, so it's loose as a goose. Typical, but nothing we can't repair. So let's disconnect it from there and here. Now we can get this out of the way and work on it a bit later. And the remote board. Pots all seem okay. This one's a bit bent up, but otherwise not bad. How's the solder on it? Solder joints all seem okay. Of course, they'll get reflowed like I do to all of these. Okay, main chassis. Yes, definitely has been worked on before. Looks like someone's installed a cap kit, and it appears to be a full cap kit, so that's good. A bit sloppy on the install, but otherwise not too bad. This may be the first one. This may be the first U5000 I've ever come across, or I should say that has ever come across the bench. I'm sorry. The first 5000 that ever come across the bench that actually has the vertical sweep mod and secured to the heatsink and not flopping around here in the breeze. I like to bend it away a bit so we don't short anything out. We have a very rusty, what's it, R727? Very rusty and corroded resistor, but I'm sure it'll still function. But as we see, common failure point on the header pins here from the heat. So we'll see if we can't fix those up. But this was reported to me as ticking, so of course the HOT is probably gone. But just looking at it here, it all appears to be intact. I don't see any missing or broken components. A lot of these caps are cattywampus, but it doesn't affect functionality. So we'll push down here and lift up on here and slide this piece off, just like so. That will allow us to inspect things. The linearity coil is, well, it's not broken, but it's loose. I'll have to glue that back in place. If you see here, it's broken off the base. So the main important part is there's a magnet on top and a magnet right there. There's two magnets, one here, one there. Those have to be in place or you'll have linearity problems. So you want to make sure those are there. And we are set to medium resolution, which means we do not want this sweep mod on the pin there. And it appears that that is hooked up correctly. You want the white wire hooked up to this pin for 15, and you don't want it hooked up for 25. So you take there's two pins here, or two pin position, and there's a black wire that's cut off. You want to put this pin here in the black lead for 25 and the white lead for 15. So we'll leave it in 25 because when we get this up and running, we'll test it in 25. So there's the 25 setting. And before we turn this over, it looks like someone's tried to replace the HOT in the past, and I think it's the wrong one. I don't recognize this at all. And they've got the insulator in there at least, unlike the last chassis we worked on, the 7000. But that's an oddball HOT. I don't think that HOT is compatible with this chassis. But we'll find out. We'll start off with the light bulb test. So our B plus resistor's bent over. Okay, we'll fix that. Alrighty, so let's turn this over and check out the back side. Nothing immediately leaps out at me. It looks like all of our solder is actually not bad for our header pins. None of this actually is cracked or really burned up. It's actually not too bad. It's really going to need a reflow, of course, but none of these really appear to be cracked or in that bad a shape. They are very suspect. This one here is kind of bad. I don't know if we can zoom in and you can see it, but there you go. See, it's slightly cracked, but it still should be connected. These ones here are starting to crack. So yeah, typical stuff, but not anywhere near as bad as some of these are when I get them. It all looks okay. So I'm not going to bother testing the HOT just yet. First thing we're going to do is our light bulb test. So again, let's see. Just looking over here, making sure we don't have any missing components. We can test, let's test our R104 and make sure we have 10K. 10K to 13K is a normal range on this. Again, if this R104 reads way out of tolerance, then you can bet something in here is bad, or the resistor itself is bad. If this reads way out of tolerance and you remove it from the circuit and it reads properly out of circuit, and then back in circuit it reads way out of tolerance, and there's something in the power supply that's affecting that. But you can usually test R104. If R104 reads correctly between 10 and 13K, it's supposed to be 10K, but they read anywhere between 10 and 13. If it reads between 10 and 13, then you can usually bet that everything in here is normally okay. You can still have a bad U101 power switch mode power supply chip. That can still be bad, and this can read correctly. But this usually reading correctly means that most of the components are probably good. So it just saves you a lot of time. So if we actually read this and it reads 13.53K, so yeah, that should be good. There we go, 13.53. So that's not out of the realm of normal reading for that, so we'll consider that to be okay. But for now, with visual inspection seeming to be okay, nothing out of the ordinary. Is that a 33 or a 3.3? 33, okay. This capacitor right here, the small little tiny one next to this one, the 1500. Actually, is it the U5000 where this is 2200? I think all these are 1500, but this one's 2200. I need to double check that because I don't know. One of these series of chassis, whether it's 74, 75, 2000, 5000, one of those four, I think has the 22, but the rest of them all have 1500. This one's 2200. I need to double check that. I don't want to have I don't want to have vertical issues. But usually, sometimes you get this little cap next to it. Someone will put a 3.3 in there. It's supposed to be 33 microfarad. Sometimes people will overlook and put a 3.3 in there, and that will give you a partial collapse. So I always double check that it's a 33 in here, not a 3.3. Okay, well, I guess what we'll do here is we'll get our light bulb test going, and looking over here, I recently cleaned up the desk bench here. I think I moved my light bulb setup back into the closet. So I'll have to cut away here for a moment and get my materials, and I'll come right back and then we'll test this and see what we get. Okay, so I got all of my materials here that we need to do our testing. 3 alligator clips, a multimeter, and a light bulb. In this case, it's a 23 watt bulb. You don't need a big one. But we'll get to that in a minute. But in the meantime, I did verify this cap is not the correct rating. This cap is supposed to be 50 volt, 1500 microfarad, and as we see, it's 2200. So that's not correct. That's supposed to be 1500, not 22. And I'm going to leave it in there for now just to see what it does. If we have vertical issues, I'll change it out to the correct one. The only one that's supposed to be 2200 is this one down in here. And as we see, it's 2200 as well. So I don't know where this cap kit came from. I'm going to have to go through and verify all these caps are the right reading as well prior to powering it up on actual tube. But already, you know, this is the wrong rating. This one here is the wrong rating. So that being said, we'll continue on. But for now, to do our light bulb test, to test our power supply section, that's for those of you who may be new to this or haven't seen my other videos, there's a jumper here, W159, on the U5000. We take this jumper out of the circuit. We unsolder the leg, this leg right here, and this is our B+ resistor, our main B+ resistor. So by taking this W159 out of the circuit here, there's no B+ feeding the chassis. It's all just power supply regulation, and there's no, basically all of this side of the chassis is dead. Well, actually this whole portion of the chassis is dead. It's just this corner here is all that's powering. And you're checking to make sure that your B+ is set properly. And if your light bulb lights up, then you know your power supply section is good. If it doesn't light up, then you most likely have a problem with your switch mode power supply chip or U101. So that's all we're testing. That's all this is for, to verify that it's going to turn on when we try and give it power. So the first step here is to remove W159 from the circuit. And that's going to correlate to this pad right here. Alright, and because this is the amateur channel, I forgot to turn my iron on before we got going here, so I'm going to cut away here for about 30 seconds till my iron heats up and I'll come right back. Alright, so iron's good to go now and the fan's running, so let's heat this up here. Alright, let's see if we can pick this out of the circuit. There we go, just like that. So with that jumper now out, extracted from the chassis, we should have no B+ feeding the rest of the board, and we can test our power supply. So here's how this works. Let's go ahead and hook up our power connector right here. Okay, let's get our multimeter, and we want to go to volts DC, and we're looking to get around 124 because this is only a 23 watt light bulb. It doesn't put much load on the system. So if we get a reading of around 124 volts DC, that should equate to around 117 once this is hooked up and running on an actual picture tube. B+ on these, you want to be 117 volts DC. So once it gets a full load on it from the picture tube, it should knock down to 117 if we get around 124 or so. If we get something way wrong, or way away from 124, we'll have to see if we can adjust our B+ pot. So that'll be step number 1 here. Okay, so let's hook up a lead to, we clip on to that jumper, which is supplying the B+ from the power supply section. We hook up a ground here for, actually, you know, we need another lead here. We hook up 2 leads. One lead is going to our light bulb to power it. The other lead's going to be going to our positive connector here, or positive lead for our meter. Alright, so now we need to hook our negative lead from the meter onto the ground. So there we go. The other end does nothing. It's just, we're just using the clip here to hold it in place against the heatsink for a ground. So now our meter's hooked up, positive and ground. We have our lead here coming off B+, and what we'll do is we'll touch the center of the light bulb, and then we'll touch the heatsink here for a ground. So if we touch our light bulb here, it should power up once I turn this on. Alright, so here we go. Let's hit power. 1, 2, 3. And it's running. So now, in theory, we should have a light bulb when I touch, or it should light up, I should say, when I touch the center here. Here we go. And there we have it. 125.2 is a bit high. We're looking for around 124, but in theory, if it's not, if it 117, once we get it all hooked up properly, we can try and adjust it. Looking at this, there's some glue. I can't tell. We may be able to break it loose. I can't say, but with this operational like this, we've now verified that our power supply section is working. And you can see how it climbs up to 180 something with no load on it. So that's why it's important to use the light bulb. But anyway, okay, so we'll turn this off. Okay, it's off, and you can see it bleeding down, 86, 85, 84. But the quickest way to do this is we can just take our lead here that's hooked up to B+ and ground it right to the frame. Just like discharging the picture tube. Watch what happens when I do that. 0. It discharged immediately. And so there you go. Now you can handle the chassis safely without any stored voltage. And we can put our leads away. Disconnect our power. Alright, put our light bulb away. And let's hook 159 back in before I forget, because I always do that. I'll go to turn this on and it won't, like, hey, it doesn't work. And I'll have forgotten to put the jumper back in here. Okay, so with that done, let's test our HOT and see if it is in fact shorted. Meter in diode mode, and negative lead on the center pin, and positive to each outer leg. Shorted and shorted. Alright, let's take it out of circuit and test it out of circuit. Well, it wasn't even screwed in for one. The nut was only held on by a couple threads. But I can tell you that this is not the correct HOT. Come on, you piece of junk. I'm going to turn my desoldering gun on here. There you go. Okay, let's get this sucker out of here. Out. And is it shorted out of circuit? It is indeed. Do our pads read shorted? It's always important to make sure the pads don't read shorted. Shut up. Alright. The pads do not read shorted, so nothing else on the circuit should be shorted, but it doesn't mean that something else on the circuit isn't bad and is the cause of the HOT going out. Over here. Okay, now let's discuss what can cause the HOT to go out on the U5000. So on the K7400 and the K7500, you've got C121 and C119 over here. They're little film capacitors that will usually go bad and cause HOT to go out on the 7475, but on the 2000 and 5000, they're not there. They don't exist. On the 2000 5000, there's two resistors over here that are the most common cause of the HOT going out. So if we look here, you've got R765 and I think it's 760. R760, this guy right here, and R765. If either one of these two resistors are open, the HOT will go kaput. And I'll be damned if I can't recall what they're supposed to. I think one of them supposed to be 400 ohms or something. Let's test and just make sure they're not open. All right, so R760, 640, I think that's correct. 765, 32K. That's correct. I think it was 34K, but 33K and 640. That's good. They're not open. So if you have a shorting HOT, check these two resistors. These are either one of these or both going open are the most common failure to HOTs being shorted out on these 2000 and 5000 chassis. But with those reading correctly, it may just simply be an issue of the original HOT died, and whoever tried to fix it put the wrong one back in. I can tell you a number of times that well, it could be related to our solder on here as well. But a lot of times, many times for me actually, the HOT was shorted on these series of chassis, and I checked and checked and checked and couldn't find anything wrong. Put a new HOT in and it fired right up. So just having a shorted HOT is not always indicative of something else causing it. If you put a new HOT in and it shorts immediately, then something else is likely to cause. But if the HOT is shorted, you put a new one in and it fires right up, then nothing else was wrong. It just happens to be, you most likely just simply had a failed HOT. And it happens. So, this inductor seems rather crispy. I want to check to... Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, I think what we'll do is we'll put a new HOT in, the correct one this time. And then we'll do our reflow. And then off camera, I'm going to go through and verify that all the caps are correct. And you know, while we're here, let's make sure we don't have any vertical vertical collapse issues. R303 should be 1.2 ohms. In circuit, it's reading 1.4, close enough. D302, this guy down here, is good. D603, it reads correctly that way. It should not read the other direction. It does not. If it does, you got a bad vertical IC. So the initial circuitry for the vertical is good. R303 is good, D302 is good, and D603 is good. So we shouldn't have any vertical problems unless this incorrect cap is causing problems, but I'm not going to worry about that just now. Let's get a new HOT in here. Let's clean up all of our solder joints and fire it up, see what happens. Looks like it spent its entire life on 25. I want to clean up. I used the last donor chassis I had a perfect connector, and I used that on the last rebuild of these that I did. What I want to do is actually, now that I think about it, let's take this connector out of here. Let's just do the 25 one, because it's been running on 25 its entire life. Let's take the 25 connector out of here and clean up the pins on it. you don't have to use a soldering iron to do this. This just makes it a lot easier. The surface area on the edge of the desoldering gun isn't very big, so this actually aids in the spreading out of the heat. So it gets makes it a much easier to do this. So that should be enough to get this out of here. Just like that. And it doesn't appear that 15 kilohertz has ever been used, so we'll just leave that one alone. And as far as this goes, we're going to clean up these contacts here. Gotta even them out. The sockets only touch this side of the pins, so you really only have to worry about cleaning up this side. That's much better. There's a this one here has lost its coating from the heat. So if we look here, you can see that there's a section here that's been burned away. So we'll have to, when we seat that connector on there, we want to make sure that it doesn't sit in that spot. I want to see if it actually has continuity on that spot. It does, okay. Alright, so our connector is now good to go. All the pins are now aligned and straight. So let's put it back in. And reflow it. Clean my tip off there. All right, there we go. That's better. Come on, get off of there. Okay. That was fun. Okay. Now let's clean up the connector. And the trick to this is you want to push the little lock pin out. Then you can just take the socket right out. There you go. Then you take a flat blade and you can get underneath there and kind of bend it up a bit so it should lock back in place when you push it back in. So there you go. That's a quick and easy way to get those out, but you don't want to push too hard or you'll pop this key down through this way, and then it's hard to get it back popped out through the other way. So just want to take these out and clean up the edges here. What is your major malfunction? There. Now you're gonna fight me? There we go. Okay, this one is pretty burned up there. But not no mo. And the next one, probably only the first 4 or so I'm gonna do. I just pushed too hard, damn it. Yeah, see, I popped it all the way through there. Now the fun part's trying to get it back through. Okay, got it. Just gonna say be careful or that'll happen to you. Wow, that one's really bad. Look at that. But now it's good. Now you're gonna fight too. Man, this is the toughest one I ever had to do. I don't want to break the pin. There we go. Snapped in. Man, not sure what was up with that one. Alright, I think that's probably going to be okay. It was just those first 3 that were burned up, so let's hook this back up. going on here? Let's see if I can get this figured out. Hang on, one moment. Alright, well, I ended up having to replace that socket. You can see in here that it's basically a brand new one right there. I ended up having to replace it because trying to get it maneuvered in there, it just bent and broke off. So I got a brand new socket on that one, no big deal, but these two are cleaned up. That one's brand new, and these here aren't really oxidized because there's only heat on really the first three. So I'm confident that that's going to be okay. So that's now been repaired. We can go ahead and plug it back on. Shouldn't give me any issues this time. Right on, okay. Let's go ahead and test Q703, because if Q703 is bad, this guy right there, the chassis won't power up at all. So let's just go ahead and verify that it's good. And we're looking for center with the negative, and each leg should be, I think one should be 0.6, other one should be somewhere around 0.9 with no HOT installed. Yeah, 0.5, that's close enough. I think that's supposed to be 0.9. No, I think that's what, okay, so it reads somewhat differently with an HOT installed versus HOT not installed. I can't recall exactly, but the important part is here that it's not shorted and it's not open. So I think Q703 is good. Let's go ahead and get our new HOT installed, and I went ahead and grabbed one. And this is the FJL 6920. This one, I highly recommend this one as opposed to the 3688. This is just much more beefier, better, robust HOT to put in these things. They're a little less picky about voltages and tolerances and things like that. It's just a much better one to put in here. Now, if this gets taken out as soon as we turn it on, let me say that again. If this gets taken out as soon as we turn this on, then we know for sure we have definitely something wrong. But I'm betting we simply had an original HOT that decided to not work anymore, and they put the incorrect one back in. That's what I'm betting on. Alright, that is secure. Let's solder it in place. Oh, really? You know, I get so angry sometimes when this kind of crap goes on. Take it back out. Fix the pad, put it back in, there we go. That's better. Okay. Alright, well, I'm going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that all the caps are the correct ones in the right spots. We know this one's not, but we'll leave it in here for testing just to see what difference it makes. And I'm also going to go through and verify that all the solder joints are good. There's no ripped or broken pads, no traces. If anything like that happens or occurs, I'll fix it. And then we'll go ahead and just get it on a tube and test it the way that it is. We need to go ahead and verify that our new HOT reads correctly. Yep, 0.4 and 0.4. So, barring any unforeseen circumstance with bad solder joint or open trace or broken pad from previous work, it should be okay. Come on. There we go. All right, so let me go through this with the fine-tooth comb, and I'll come right back, and then we'll see about getting this tested. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and I have to inspect this. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that while I'm thinking about it. Let's get this off of here. Ah, darn it. Well, that should be easily fixable. If we see here, all these traces are lifted up. Very common. It's not really that bad when it comes to the heat. This isn't really that bad. It's not really that heat damaged. But I'm going to have to loosen up all the solder and lay this flat, straighten it up, lay it flat, and then resolder all this in, and it shouldn't be too bad. So I'll take care of that. And I need to get this cleaned up a bit too. But I think for testing purposes, let me, I'll inspect the main board, inspect the neck board, I'll get this taken care of, I'll show it afterward, and then we'll get it all hooked back up and get it ready for testing. So let me do that, and I'll come right back here. Okay, one moment. Okay, so I got all this taken care of, I got all of the heat sinks aligned, I got all the solder removed and new solder flowed, and the traces all back down. And not only that, but they're nice and secure now. You can move them around, you can wobble this around, and they're all straight and secure, so that's all fixed and repaired. Then I was straightening up all these capacitors because they were kind of bent over and slotted to one side, and I happened to notice that this one's actually broken. If we zoom in here, you can see that this one is broken. So I don't know if it happened in shipping or really what happened with this. It's nothing that I did to it, but that one's broken. I just happen to have another one here I can put in there, so let's go ahead and do that. Take this guy out of here. And will this work? Doubtful, yeah. Too big of a plane here. Got it. Really? You're gonna be like that? There it is. Alright. Now we can, and as you can see, that leg is gone off of there. So 254.7 is correct. Let's get a new one in there. I also did a bit of reflow on some stuff. I always reflow these headers and other things that might have needed it. So just for now, I mean, I'll go through and do a complete full reflow once we're done testing. And once we get this working and tested and everything, that's what I mean. Then I'll go through and do all the reflow and cleanup and everything that normally gets done outside the scope of this video. Alright, so neck board is now done enough. Oh, I also wiped the pots back and forth, and set all these to a quarter. Like I said before, the drive pots you put about 50%, but all of the bias pots, these series of chassis don't like to have the color pots higher than about 30% of the drive. So you go turn it all the way down, go to 25 to 30%. Anything higher than that, it tends to bleed the colors. So I always just kind of baseline put these at about 25 to 30%. So that's where these are set to right now. As you can see, these are 50%, these are about 30%. So that's where we'll set this. So the neck board's now ready to go. The remote board was fine. I didn't see any bad solder joints or anything on it. Harness seems intact, so we'll set that aside. The main board, yeah, so I need to still go through. Give me a moment here again. I'm going to go through and verify all the caps are correct, orientations, and reflow anything that needs it, just enough for testing purposes. And then when I come back, I'll have this all hooked up and ready to go on a tube so we can flip on the power and cross our fingers and we'll see what happens. Alright, got everything hooked back up. And we have anode, neck, yoke, ground, power, video, remote. We're going to be using our test pattern generator. We're set to medium res. I'll go ahead and turn it on. We also have our meter set up to read B+. The B+ test point is right there next to that capacitor. There's a little test lead that says, I don't know if you'll see, zoom out and zoom back in. Right there, B+ TP202 I think it is. So we hook up right there to read our B+. We're hoping to be around 117, give or take. And we're actually hoping just for it to power on. I did notice something else. When I went to put the focus wire back in, it was bent off to the side, like someone tried to put it in and missed and just flattened it over. So I don't think the focus wire was even installed originally properly either. So this was kind of a hot mess. But all of our testing proves that it should power up. All of the caps were correct. Correct orientation, correct size and everything, except for that one cap here, which should be 1500 microfarad, but it's 2200, so hopefully it won't cause an issue. We'll find out. But yeah, I think we're ready to turn it on, and hopefully it turns on, and all of our testing indicates that it should. And I just noticed this repair there. Interesting. Okay, well, nothing to it but to do it here. Let's turn off our fan. And we'll kill our desoldering station so we can hear if something blows up. Alright, we have 25 kilohertz selected. We have our jumper for the vertical sweep on the non-wire, like we talked about before. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. And it fires right up. How about that? What's our B+? 117.4. You can't ask for a better result than that. We don't have an image yet still. Oh, it's creeping. Oh, yep, look at that. I would say that 2200 cap is definitely wrong. Look at that. Let's do, is it vertical hold? There's our vertical. Look at that. I don't know what's going on there. Let's do, what does height do? Does height help us out? Oh, never mind, look at that. Height was turned all the way down. I'm not sure what the heck's going on there. Is it the contrast too high? Contrast all the way down. Brightness all the way down. Oh yeah, the flyback's up. Contrast and brightness are all the way down right now, and we still have an image like this. Let me get set up on the tripod here. Maybe we can make some adjustments and see what's going on. Okay, contrast brightness all the way down. We'll have to adjust our flyback here until somehow, some way, keep coming up with funky ass shit like every single day. That's better. Contrast, brightness. I have no idea what's going on with that image. Wow. Looks like roughly vertical position needs to be about there. There's our height, width. We We got a big, look, what's up with that? Look at that. Yeah, there's some type of, and we got to adjust our focus here too. Not that it matters. That's perfect there. Okay, well, I don't know, I've never seen that before. If you've seen that before, you know, bleep bloop down there in the comments. But something's definitely up here. Is it an H position issue? Well, that's exactly what it was. Haha, nice. H position was way out of whack. Okay. I'm glad we didn't dive too far into that with, look at that, ladies and gents. How about that? Look at that. Beautiful. Red, green, blue. There's our convergence. Back to checkerboard. I'd say so far so good. Medium res. Thumbs up. Let's turn off. Let's turn the monitor off. Turn our test pattern generator off. Go back to standard. Move our jumper over to 15. 15 is now selected. I got to move my vertical sweep mod over to the white wire on the pin. There we go. Standard res on test pattern generator. Turn on the generator itself. So let's see what 15 kilohertz standard res gives us. B plus is 116.1, close enough. Need to adjust our vertical hold. What about, nope, horizontal hold? There we go. H position, we're way too wide. Let's adjust our width, and how about that? Height. Well, I say we have a successful repair on our hands, guys and gals. The true test now will be to turn this off. Generator off. Give it an actual signal from a real PCB. And vertical holds off again. And contrast, brightness, that's too high. We gotta adjust vertical position to roughly there, height, roughly there, H position, right about there. And there you go. Hot dog. Obviously Mortal Kombat running here. And this is a dedicated U5000 tube and yoke and everything, so yeah, colors need adjusted. That's why I like to use an actual PCB, because the test pattern generator doesn't really give you an accurate portrayal of what a real board would look like. So let's move our height down a bit, vertical position. There we are. And go back to height. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to have to, contrast is all the way up. Brightness, yeah, we're going to have to, that's not bad. We need to fix our colors though. Let's move them all to the center range. Yeah, see, look at that. That's how much worse that is. Just a little bit tweaks it too much. Got to turn our drive up. Yeah, just This tube's old and tired as well, but adjusting colors and everything is out of the scope and the range of this video. This is just to get the chassis up and running, and we're running at 116.9, 1.5. We had 117.1 there a moment ago, so B+ is good. We are all repaired. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away here and fight the color adjustments and everything, and brightness, contrast, RGB, and get this all adjusted properly, and come right back and we'll see it in action with it all adjusted properly. So give me a moment here. Alright, so here it is. This is about as good as I can get it on this tube. It looks much more correct in person. In camera it looks a bit too green. Let me turn the background light out. Maybe that'll help here. Yeah, it's pretty damn good in person. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's not staying on this tube, or I do a little bit more tweaking, but as it stands right now, this looks pretty darn good. Yeah, so I think we are a successful repair. Let's plug this back in. There we go. Okay. So we're down to, I think the original HOT simply died. And someone tried to fix it by putting the cap kit in it, didn't fix it, and they put the incorrect type of HOT back in, and it took it out again. So I don't think it's anything that I actually did that fixed this, other than just replacing the HOT and some reflow. I think the original problem was the HOT simply died, and they put the wrong one in to replace it. And this is one of those situations or circumstances where the HOT simply died, and there was no other factor that took it out. It just, from age and usage, it just simply died, and it happens. This is an example. Nothing else was wrong. They put the wrong HOT in, put the correct one back in, along with some reflow and all the focus up. And it's back to working. So that's the review. So yeah, I'm going to do all my normal cleanup and a bit more reflow. And focus, that's been better. Yeah, get you up close here. It's nice and clear. No distortion. It does look pretty darn good. If it'd focus. There you go. Yeah, look how crystal clear that is. But that's all the picture tube, actually, but regardless. So we have another working 5000. The only thing wrong with it was the bad replacement HOT. And of course we had the cap on the neck board that was broken, various bad solder joints, the header pins needed to be reworked, but the only real major issue was the incorrect HOT replacement. So I'll do all of my other work that I normally do off camera, and we will call this a successful repair. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Stay tuned for the next video. Got a lot more on the way, like I always say, and which I always do. Got a pile over here. And when I get the time, I will take a look at all that and post videos accordingly. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when a new video is out if you're interested. Otherwise, I appreciate it. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.